Hey, Fidelity. How can I remember to invest every month?
With the Fidelity app, you can choose a schedule and set up recurring investments in stocks and ETFs.
Oh, that sounds easier than I thought.
You got this.
Yeah, I do. Now, where did I put my keys?
You will find them where you left them.
Investing involves risk, including risk of loss. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC, member NYSE, SIPC.
This is a message from sponsor Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was getting frustrated by your forms. Now, Taxes is uploading your forms with a snap, and a TurboTax expert will do your taxes for you. One who's backed by the latest tech, which cross-checks millions of data points for absolute accuracy, all of which makes it easy for you to get the most money back, guaranteed. Get an expert now at TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live Full Service. See guaranteed details at TurboTax.com/guarantees.
Well, welcome everybody to Fruitloops Video Club, where we watch stuff, talk about stuff, debate stuff, laugh and cry about stuff, feel stuff, and learn stuff as a community. This month, we are talking about our watching of the documentary called The Stroll on Max. I'm Wendy. That's Beth. And also
Hello.
Minnie is here.
Hello.
Did everybody here watch?
Yes.
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 Okay.
I've watched
Actually,
it like 3 times now.
Okay.
I just finished watching it for the second time.
Okay, so lots to say. I will say it's got a 96% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah,
and
it's really good.
It is really good. It's about the history of New York's Meatpacking District, told from the perspective of transgender sex workers who lived and worked there. And they recount violence, policing, gentrification that led to a movement for transgender rights. It came out in 2023. Kristen Lovell is the Black trans woman who is featured throughout the documentary, and she's interviewing everybody.
She created the documentary, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
And Zachary Drucker is also a director, but I wouldn't know him from
I don't know him. Yeah.
But glad he's here. And there's so many other characters we see featured throughout this documentary. We got Rudy Giuliani, Marsha P. Johnson, Sylvia Rivera, RuPaul, and many others. But just want to say, this is a documentary about trans people, people of the trans experience. Beth, Minnie, and I are not of the trans experience. So we know that we have within our community of fruities, folks of the trans and non-binary experience. So we want to make sure that if you're listening, that this is a space where, you know, if you want to say something that will help guide the discussion or lead us in the appropriate way, great. But it looks like it's just us. So if
I kind of wish somebody had joined from the trans community.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
So if we stumble or say something off, we apologize. Thank you for giving us grace to grow as we talk about this documentary, which I think did what it was supposed to do, right? Show us something and teach us something.
Yes, definitely.
Speaking of, that's where Kristen starts. The documentary is, you know, she was in a documentary a long time ago, and she was talking about how she was being interviewed. The documentary maker was white. And she felt weird because she was telling somebody else her story and not 100% trusting that they would care for her story in the way that she
wasn't in control of her story.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
She was handing it over to this person, and I got the feeling she didn't appreciate how it was handled.
Yeah. She also reflected, you know, at the time she wasn't sober. She was high on cocaine. But I'm just grateful that she saw that opportunity, because I do feel like this documentary did just that. Showed us, remember I shouted this out maybe like 6 months ago on the show, showed us the trans experience with trans voices in a way that was eye-opening.
Very eye-opening,
Yeah. So I was just thankful for the documentary. I think it was great. So
it was beautiful, really.
Yeah. Well, we're going to get into our thoughts, maybe some questions we might still have that weren't answered by the documentary. You know, does this documentary make us want to take any sort of action based on the things that we learned? And I think that's it. So let's start there. What are your thoughts, Beth and Minnie? Or I could go first. It doesn't matter. I'm the one with notes. I don't know if you guys have notes.
Do you want to go, Minnie?
Sure. One of the overarching themes to me that I kept coming away with was the idea of sex work needing to be legalized. I think
Yeah.
a lot of what happened to a lot of these people wouldn't have happened if it had been legal for them to do the work that they needed to do and in a place that
in
was
order
safe
to
for them
survive.
to do it. Yeah, in order
Yeah.
to survive. Yeah, that they needed to do in order to survive. Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
that was infuriating.
Mhm.
That
Yeah.
I mean, they couldn't get jobs because they were
a
trans.
lot of them were describing employment elsewhere where they lost their jobs once they came out. And so also, yes, sex work should be legal, decriminalized, given all the benefits, just like any other labor. But the employers who are firing people for being themselves is wild.
Yeah. And I kept thinking how brave these women were to be who they were. Because I don't know that I would have been able to do that.
Right. The time is really significant too, right? It's the 60s, 70s, and 80s on the heels of Stonewall, right? After we're meeting Sylvia after she sounded off the Stonewall riot, and we're seeing her on stage. We're seeing her in a homeless encampment. And then it turns around at the end of the documentary, which I was really happy about. She has like housing for trans youth. So
that's what
a lot of ups and downs. It was a journey.
Yeah. What I was going to say is that tied in with, legalizing sex work and then making it more of like, in the Netherlands where you basically go to an office and do your work there. It also takes away the stigma of that. And that to me ties in with stigma in general. We need to have acceptance because I kept thinking these are the thoughts that I'm kind of going through as I'm watching the documentaries. Thinking of we need acceptance of sex work, which also, if people are open to that, maybe we can open their minds to other things, to acceptance in general, which in the end would lead to maybe, hopefully, trans people not being kicked out of their houses in the first place and having to resort to sex work.
Yes, that part.
Acceptance in general.
Acceptance in general. And I think
acceptance of sex work because so they'd been kicked out of their homes. So they're engaging in sex work because that's what they need to do in order to survive. And then the communities where they have to do this because there's no offices for that are again kicking them out of the community.
Yeah.
And everywhere they go, there's not acceptance.
They're being marginalized wherever they go.
In multiple ways, from all fronts. Which is just awful.
Yeah, I think it's for being members of the survival industry or sex work, for being people of color and poor, and also for being trans or non-binary. So, and it was really sick to hear all these white police officers being interviewed, and they were so proud. And they were like, he said something like, "Do you think what they're doing is good for the homosexual community's reputation?" And I was just like, who has time to think about reputation when you're trying to figure out how to eat?
You're just trying to survive.
When you're just trying, like, how dare you? The caucasity.
Yeah, it made me. It did make me think of when I was younger and I didn't understand a lot of these things, and be like, why are they doing that? Why would they be doing that? Did not get it. Just didn't, because I didn't know that they. I'm just talking about sex workers. I didn't know that their lives were not like mine. And as I get older, I've learned a lot and realized a lot of things. I think some people go through life without learning these things.
That's crazy. Yeah. Like I think of, when I was in college and I met girls who'd never met a Black person before, like in the 2000s, which is crazy.
That is insane.
But I think the stat is now like only 1 in 4 Americans know somebody or is in community with somebody who is of the trans experience.
That's so. Yeah, I believe that because I don't know if I know anybody. Well, aside from our fruities that we've met online in person, I don't think I know anybody who's trans.
Yeah. And for me, I did not have, I wasn't in community with LGBTQ and specifically trans people until the pandemic, until sort of we were forced to. And those were all in my recovery groups, right?
Okay.
Is BIPOC and LGBTQ folks. And so that's where I've found community with trans people and learned quite a bit. Obviously, still learning things, but that stat really makes a lot of sense if you think about it. And the efforts by society to marginalize them even further, you would think are working, but they're still out here.
Well,
the Bernies are still out here.
Right now, the climate is horrible.
Yeah.
It's time for basketball, and Uber Eats is dropping deals on game day favorites to keep you locked in on the action. Like when you're craving a buzzer beater, but also buffalo wings. Or when an upset makes you want to ugly cry into a pizza. And right now, Uber Eats has game day deals from McDonald's, Popeyes, Pizza Hut, Wendy's, and hundreds more local favorites. So you can keep your eyes on the ball and your hands on a hamburger. Order now, only on Uber Eats. Product availability varies by region. See app for details.
Uh-oh. The last cookie.
You can get a new box of cookies in as fast as an hour with Walmart Express Delivery.
Are you my guilty self-conscience?
No, I'm the voice offering you promo code EXPRESS for free delivery on your first order.
Hey, who ate my cookies?
You mean, these cookies?
Order now. Welcome to your Walmart. Promotion valid for first express delivery order. $50 minimum subject to availability. Restrictions apply.
Actually, I think today or this month is Trans-Indigenous Month. Yes, is this month. And I was listening to an interview with a Dene, which I guess is
Navajo. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Cleopatra Tatabel is an Indigenous trans person and educator talking about three spirits. I don't know why I brought that up, but I was just trying to get more information as I was knowing that I was going to have to talk about this. So I lost my train of thought. More thoughts.
Well, I just wanted to mention that the animation in the movie, I really enjoyed that.
Oh, I did too. And I took note. I saw who did the animation. I was like, oh, they really did that. But I didn't remember what the name was. But the animation was really cool. How they had the women with their faces today walking through these like paper black and white scenes of the area on 14th Street. And it was just really, really cool.
Reenacting things and
on the bus.
Or hiding. I love that scene when they were, the cops would come and they would hide and then they'd all come out. I mean, that's not funny, but the animation, it brought some levity to the story. Yeah.
I think you're right, because they also use the animation to show us, the viewer, that there were people who did not survive.
Yeah.
For whatever reason. And when we learned that somebody hadn't survived, their image was ripped off. Yeah. And so we didn't have to see any of the violence that we know is part of these women's stories, because they told us in the documentary, but we didn't see it in that way.
It was
so
very
I thought that was
affecting to me when they mentioned, I don't remember who it was who was saying it. Actually, I think it was, I don't remember her name.
Egypt?
Might have been. Yeah, I think it might have been. Saying that the trans community, people don't generally live past their 30s.
That was, tragic. I remember that too. I think it was Egypt.
Yeah. And Egypt is one of the OGs.
Yes.
I was really glad Kristen got a hold of many of the OGs that she came up under during her time at the Stroll to tell us about their stories and how they were like mothers to everybody. And gosh, the things that these women have been through,
was beautiful.
And the community that they had to have, or they wouldn't have made it.
So taking care of each other when, they could have been, I mean, they were competitors, they're all working in the same area, the Stroll, and finding customers. They could have been competitors, but they weren't. They helped each other.
Yeah. I think that was remarkable. One of the OGs talked about how out of 1,000 girls who were there at the Stroll when I first got there, only 5 of them are alive today.
Yeah.
And I challenge you to look for or find an OG out there, because if you do, give them their flowers. That's another thing I really love that Kristen was doing, is giving every person she interviewed their flowers, saying what an honor it was for them to be talking to her. There were also times where some of the women seemed to hesitate a little bit, like, I don't know if I can say this. I don't know if I should say this. And Kristen was just like say it. Tell your story. And I thought that was really, really great, because we talked I listened to a lot of interviews with Kristen about this documentary, and the thing that came up a lot was the white cisgender gaze and how this film is not for the white cisgender gaze. This is a movie for them, these trans women, for them, by them, right? To tell their story in a completely unedited and unwhitewashed. And I appreciate it so much. So,
yeah.
Well, what else should we say about this documentary?
I recall there was a section of the documentary that they were talking about RuPaul.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
RuPaul had come out to show the Stroll, or the area, the Meatpacking District. And he, at the time, was rather disrespectful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just kind of making fun of him.
Kristen said he should have known better.
Yeah.
So
I think he was probably just trying to be funny.
Trying to be funny, trying to make a dollar.
Because that's what he does.
Trying to come up. Yes.
Yeah.
You know,
But,
he does fracking.
And he always says,
he does what?
Don't take yourself too seriously.
Fracking?
Fracking?
Yes. You know, the environmental catastrophe that drills and shit.
He does fracking?
Yeah. Like he has property in Oklahoma.
Oh.
And, they do fracking on his property, and he reaps the benefits of the fracking.
Oh,
hello!
I did not know that.
Nobody's ever heard.
No, I know what fracking is.
I
was just like,
yeah,
fracking? What?
Yeah.
I thought I was going to learn a new term here.
Me too. Because I didn't know what fracking is, but I thought it was like something else.
I will say, in RuPaul's defense, RuPaul has done a lot to help people within the community get their shine and come up in an industry that isn't really made for any of us, if I'm being honest.
True.
So that's great. But I think there is a recurring pattern of RuPaul doing like what he did in this documentary,
doing
for
what he
a laugh,
needs to do
for the bag, right?
Yeah.
And
doing what
he
he
needs to do for the bag.
for
and
him.
that comes from his, I don't know if you know his story, but he has trauma as well. And so, you know, we're all working through things, right?
Yeah.
So,
Nobody's perfect.
All that to say, he should have known better. I agree with Kristen, but he was, I think, doing what he had to do to survive, just like they all were.
Yeah.
And I think, I kind of feel like he, at the time, and, you know, as she said, he should have known better. I'm not sure if he even completely understood the trans community, you know, because from his perspective,
absolutely,
you put on a dress, you're a drag queen, you know, it doesn't mean you want to be a woman. You're a drag queen. And I think he didn't quite get it, that these are women, you know?
Yeah. And I think you're right. Maybe RuPaul's understanding was not there yet. And a lot of, and it, like in America's consciousness, one thing that I thought was really, it surprised, because I've watched this documentary numerous times. It surprises me every time it pops up. The death of, who's that young one?
Miranda,
Natalie?
something, the one who was murdered, her neck was cut. She was attacked. That one?
Yes. So it was Matthew Shepard was killed. That was in the 90s. Oh, they also did a good job of giving us a timeline, even though my notes seem like this is all over the place. But there is a timeline in this documentary. And the death of Matthew Shepard was an interesting point in LGBTQ history across the world. Mr. Shepard was a gay, white, young person. I want to say 19, maybe not even 18 yet, but was killed in a horrific way. And his body was displayed out to die. And that happened in Wyoming. But there were protests for it in New York. And the LGBTQ community came out. And that same time, one of their sisters was stabbed in public in front of people, laughing and cheering as she was attacked.
Because she was trans.
Because she was trans, and she just bled out.
Her name was Amanda Milan.
Thank you, Amanda Milan. And there were no protests for Amanda Milan. And the trans community was angry.
Yeah, and they talked a lot about how the trans community had fought for gay rights, and then nobody fought for them.
Yeah.
So
they didn't reciprocate.
Right. Which, thinking about it pragmatically, I know this is terrible. I mean, it's not terrible. I don't know what to say. I'm just going to say it.
Okay.
Thinking about it pragmatically, people are not going to accept trans people right away, but you can get them to accept gay people. And then after that, you can start working on getting them to accept trans people. I think that was probably the trajectory, but I understand how the trans community would feel that they're being left behind and they're not being fought for. That was my thought. I don't know if it's
I've talked to you
true
about this
or not.
before, Beth,
yeah,
is how in the LGBTQ community there's racism within it.
right.
And a big component of anti-transness is also, I believe, to be anti-Blackness. And I think that in the LGBTQ community, there are a lot of cis white men who don't necessarily have to announce that they are marginalized because of their sexual identity, right? They can still present as a cis white man.
Yeah.
Same for gay, cis white women. That carries a lot of privilege, which I think has contributed to the movement moving forward, marriage equality, etc. And I think once cis gay people had their rights,
then they didn't feel like they needed to do anything more.
It was really easy for them to abandon the struggles of the other people on the train. And I think that
they're like, I don't want to go through this again.
Oh or why?
Whatever.
Maybe why should I? Or maybe
they're just like, I'm tired.
Maybe they have blinders. I think that it would probably be a challenge to acknowledge that for a cis het white person to acknowledge that. But I hear what the trans sisters are saying, that they were forgotten. They thought they were part of this movement, and then actuality,
they were abandoned.
They weren't.
I was
and that was
wondering
heartbreaking
a little bit where, the documentary is about the Stroll, but there was zero mention of trans men, unless I missed something.
There wasn't.
There wasn't.
No.
Now, there is another documentary that came out this same time, won all the same awards, Kokomo City. And there is more trans men representation, but there is also, cis men who love trans women, and those people are in the documentary as well. So you're right. I did not see that either in this one, but the content is out there and we should at some point look into it and talk about it, or to expand the conversation. Again, this is a documentary to teach us stuff so we can learn and talk about stuff.
Yeah.
And like we said, none of us are of the trans experience. We are not here to harm. We're just here to learn. Talk about what we learned and discuss.
I am always here to learn.
Yes, definitely.
One of my favorite things to do is to learn things.
So it looks like you can rent Kokomo City on Amazon Prime. It's on several other places. If anybody's interested, Vudu, YouTube, Apple TV.
Great. Somebody was killed. One of the trans girls who's featured in the documentary. Shortly after they wrapped up.
Oh, man.
Before it came out. I think
That's
her name
really
is
sad.
Coco.
Here at the Almond Joy Factory, where tropical vibes abound, we use soft, fresh-tasting coconut.
The crunchiest almonds and delicious chocolate candy.
Ah, but do you know what our most important ingredient is? Sometimes you feel like a nut.
Sometimes you don't.
Almond Joy's got nuts and something even way better than that. Yes, Almond Joy is made with almonds and joy.
Pepsid Complete knows that food is one of the best parts of game day. That is, until heartburn strikes. Thankfully, just one chewable tablet of Pepsid Complete provides dual-action heartburn relief with an antacid that starts working instantly and an acid reducer that lasts all day. So you can stay focused on that second helping of chili without worrying about heartburn. All day based on 8-hour symptom relief studies during the day. Use product only as directed.
Back to this one. There was a lot of death. There was a lot of pain. I was blown away by some of the women who described the violence they experienced, the harassment from the police, getting chased. That man who was the community, neighborhood watch guy.
Oh yeah, he was an asshole.
He put up signs in the neighborhood to try to deter people from engaging in whatever they had to survive. But he was very proud of himself, and this not in my backyard attitude was so blatant, but it's so gross, and I don't know how they're not ashamed of it, but they weren't.
It's really frustrating how people are always focused on stopping something instead of focusing on why is this thing happening and what can we do to help these people.
It was like that moment in the film was when I started thinking about, couldn't we just make sex work legal and then provide an area where they can engage in that, like an office or whatever that they can go to and engage in that, and then problem solved.
Or a place to live.
Or a place to live, a place to fucking live.
Or a job, for Christ's sake.
I'm gonna go on one of my rants here. It's like,
crazy?
So water is a basic human right.
Yeah.
Food should be a basic human right.
Yeah.
A place to live should be a fucking basic human right. It shouldn't be something that we can withhold to get people to fall in line and do what we want them to do. It is not a stick to hit people with, it's like
weaponizing, weaponizing their lack. Yeah.
You
know what though? She's in Canada, so she can't help us out here. Yeah, they got a pretty, solid
healthcare should be basic fucking human right.
They got healthcare and stuff. So
like the number of times. So whenever we go down to the States, I'm always just stunned again by the commercials that you see. Of like medicine. If you've got you have an itchy butthole, try this. It's like, how about go to a fucking doctor and have them, fix you.
You can't do that.
No, just buy our medicine. Diagnose yourself because you can't possibly afford your doctor's bills. And that's what I hear when they're saying that.
Yeah,
like, healthcare should be fucking free.
Yeah, it should.
If I have an itchy butthole, I should be able to just go to my doctor.
Wait, so are you telling me, Minnie, there are no medicine commercials don't play in Canada?
Not really, because if you have a problem, you go to your doctor.
And you get medicine.
Well,
you don't need to diagnose yourself.
You just
go
get
to the medicine
doctor.
Something that they do here with the prescription medications. They have the ads for the prescription medications because they want you to go to your doctor and demand it to sell more medicine. And maybe they don't allow that in Canada.
Yeah, I don't know if it's not allowed or something, but that's not really the focus of the commercials. Yeah, it's more like, go buy some donuts at Tim Hortons. I don't know. It's not that Canada is without problems, Yeah, it's not perfect, and there's plenty wrong that needs to be fixed, but at
least you got healthcare.
At least we got healthcare. Yeah. And there are plenty of people who are not provided with a place to live, that need a place to live, and that needs to be, to me, a basic human right that is addressed. Like, a lot of these societal problems would simply go away if we gave people
if we had
food,
our basic
shelter, water, basic
needs taken care of.
Imagine, just think about it. If we all have our needs met, there's no need for me to start plotting about how I'm gonna either steal Minnie's things or plot to
or sell drugs or
her life. So you don't have
and I can engage in sex work if I enjoy it, but if I don't enjoy it, I don't have to, because I can get food. And if I'm a 15-year-old and my parents don't
kick me out of the house or whatever
because of what I am or who I am or whatever, then that's okay, because I can go and have my needs met
somewhere
and not have to engage in something I don't
live in the streets.
Do or I can live in the streets if I want to, but it should be okay. Like, if you want to live in the street, go ahead. But I think a lot of people who don't actually really want to It's just it's better than going back home with so and so who abuses me,
Right.
A lot. I mean, it was said multiple times. I would have much rather been on the street than been in that house with that oppressive religion, or not letting me be who I am, or being abused. So I think ultimately, one of the things that I loved seeing is, in the face of all this awful circumstances, that these women who survived could still like hold their heads high and smile and be grateful for being alive, and, honest about the hard times and the ugly times. But just the resilience and strength of these women is
amazing.
Incredible. And that, I think, was something to smile about in the end.
Resilience.
But although, remember Izzy?
Yes.
Izzy. So Izzy goes by they, them, and Izzy lives with their husband in Florida. And Izzy lived as a trans woman on the street and was in the survival industry. And it caught me off guard. They went to the Stroll to talk and reminisce, and they broke down. You know that part?
That one made me cry.
Yeah. They broke down when they were, recounting that experience. And that was really, I can't think
really
of a word.
affecting.
All I can say is,
Yeah, it did make me tear up.
Yeah.
Sure.
They also talked,
because they were just having a conversation about it, and then it was just all of a sudden it was just coming back to them.
Yeah.
And
it just came back to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they were like, I can't do this. I can't do this.
Did you recognize the area, Wendy?
I did, Beth.
We were there.
You recognize the area? Wink. We spent some time there.
We did.
Yeah.
When we went to New York for the Apple thing.
Yes.
We drove by that park. It's a pier, used to be a pier where the people would camp out.
Yeah.
And they made it into this fancy park. And we drove by there, and I had to go there. I had to go. So I made Wendy
did it
go.
Again.
She dragged you along.
Well,
I dragged her
along.
Like, I was really drawn to it, which is kind of funny. Like I just had to go.
Yeah. But in hindsight, I'm very glad I did. It was beautiful.
It was cool.
We have to. I'm really. There's got to be a plaque somewhere that says the
there
history
should be.
of it.
Yeah.
If there was, I didn't see it. But that was a safe place for
them. Yeah.
Young gay and trans youth who had been kicked out of their homes, and they had an encampment. They would have holidays there, Christmas and Thanksgiving, and they were a community. They really, really looked out for each other. And I will say, this is not a quote from me, but I was listening to an interview. Again, it's Trans Indigenous Peoples Month. And this trans person said that BIPOC trans people and LGBTQ people are better at building community than the white gays are. I don't know if that's true or not, but I thought it was an interesting quote. And I was like, ooh, I'm going to see what they think. Only because if you think about the history and the BIPOC ancestry, two-spirit, gender, and sex on a spectrum are 1,000-year-old concepts that only have been disrupted since colonialism and white supremacy. So I just thought that was very interesting.
That is interesting. Yeah.
But they made it, and they sure as shit did it. I think a lot of it has to do with them relying on each other and being there for each other. And that was beautiful. They talked about the change in administration. So Giuliani comes on the scene, broken windows policing, everybody's getting locked up because Giuliani believes that if there's a broken window, there's a rape and a murder right around the corner. So that was a harmful policy. And then there was Bloomberg. And then there was the 3 strikes, you're out for life law. But this was all during this tough on crime mumbo jumbo.
So, the one woman, I can't remember what her name is, but she went to Rikers, and she was in Rikers for 14 years.
Yep.
I was thinking a lot about her. She got, 5 to 7 or something years. And she said she got really violent in there because to survive.
You have to.
Yeah. And so she ended up serving 14 years. And that never would have happened if they hadn't arrested her for...
Yeah. Now, you know that Rikers
trans.
Island is not a prison. It's a jail. It's a detention center. People in Rikers haven't been convicted of anything yet. but people end up staying there for a really, really long time, mostly because they're poor and they don't have the money to make their bail. And the conditions are worse than they probably were when our girl who told us that story in the documentary was there.
Well, she was convicted of a crime, though.
Okay, so she wasn't in Rikers for 14 years. She was in prison.
She said she was. Maybe I misunderstood, but they mentioned Rikers, and then she was in prison for 14 years. In any case, none of that would have happened had she not been arrested for bullshit. Mm-hmm. And then when she came back, everything was different. And that was kind of sad.
Yeah. And that's where the animation kicked in again and was very, very helpful in helping us see everything. The whole scene is different, completely gentrified. Can you imagine like being away and then coming back and all of a sudden smartphones? What is this?
She said when she went in, they were using beepers. Yeah. And she came out and everybody had smartphones.
It's like, what the hell is this?
Yeah. What the? What sorcery is this?
This episode is brought to you by Coffee Mate. After watching this season of the HBO's original series, The White Lotus, this is the tropical getaway I needed. One more pina colada, please.
Hey, you're not on mute.
Oh, I thought I was in paradise. Turns out it was my Coffee Mate. Coffee Mate pina colada and Thai-iced coffee-flavored creamers. Inspired by the newest season of HBO's original series, The White Lotus. For the love of coffee. Try now.
They interviewed a person from the ACLU who talked about this 240.37 statute that allowed police officers to arrest trans workers if you just look like you were going to commit a sex act. Yeah. That was it. Just walking while trans.
Yeah.
I was also surprised it seemed like every woman interviewed in this documentary said they had a client who was a police officer and they had been harmed by police officers. And then it got me thinking, that neighborhood watch dude who was like, we'll call in your license plates. We'll call your house. I was like, what do you do when you get a license plate that belongs to a police officer and just picking up one of these women? Do you offer to call their supervisor? Maybe change some laws? No? Oh, you're quiet. Interesting, But yeah, this oppression of trans folks is it's just at a level that when this documentary came out, it just seems like this is their efforts are ramping up their efforts. Yeah, it's insane. And so
just
I think
because of fear.
And it makes no sense. It makes no sense.
Yeah, it makes no sense to me. Like why I wouldn't care,
Yeah.
Why do people care so much?
This rabid interest.
I think it's fear of what is in them. I think that they are afraid. Like we see a trans person, we know that's somebody living their authentic life, living in their truth, seeking what makes them happy. And I think it's bothersome to people who don't have the ability to do that. There's a truth that they're suppressing. There's something in them that they are afraid of or been made to believe that they should be afraid of and shouldn't let out.
Yeah. So it's like, so if anybody else, then everybody should have to suck it up. But
I'm reminded of my ex-mother-in-law.
Oh, yeah.
What about her?
Oh, basically when I was getting divorced, she basically told me that she had to suck it up and, live with a shitty marriage. And so should I?
Wow.
Basically, she didn't say that, but that was the gist of it.
Yeah.
Sounds about right. She was a miserable person.
Human. Yeah.
And maybe that's just it. It's fear and misery loves company. Those.
But I don't know. I've been really sad and depressed and stuff, but it hasn't made me like want
other people
to like, I don't know.
Be miserable.
I can't wrap my head around it.
Yeah. It's just something that we don't.
Yeah. I had a roommate one time and I can't even remember what his stupid argument was, but I was talking to him about, it was basically the same kind of thing. And he was saying something about gay people, they just don't have the self-control that they ought to have, And I'm like, oh, so what you're saying is that you want to be with men and you're controlling. And he's like, no. I'm like, but basically that's what
it sounds
what you're
like.
saying. I'm like, I'm like, You're either attracted to men or you're not. It's not a self-control thing. You are or you're not,
Yeah.
And so if you think that it's just simply a matter of self-control and you're controlling it, then you're gay. Or you're bi, or you're questioning or
That's
something.
What
I don't know.
think because, I'm not scared of it. It's not,
No,
it doesn't scare me.
Yeah, it doesn't scare me at all.
I don't, I'm not
I
gay.
have plenty of gay friends, and I'm not worried that it's contagious.
And I'm straight, and I know I'm straight because I was born that way, and that's how I know.
Because I look at men and I go woohoo, and and I look at boobs and I'm like, okay, it's just like locker room.
That's how I know that gay people are born that way,
right?
Because
exactly, because
it's not
it wasn't something I had to learn.
If
I didn't have to learn
something you didn't have to
men.
That's
it's
a good
not
way
a choice
to put
that
it.
I made.
Yeah,
it
wasn't something that I learned.
Teach myself how to.
If I had a choice, I'd be a lesbian.
No, really?
I seriously would, because I think I would get along much better with a woman.
With women, yeah.
But
on that note, I have no choice.
To leave.
All right, Minnie, thanks for joining us. Minnie has to get out.
Enjoy the rest of your conversation.
You.
Love you too.
I think we're just gonna love you, Minnie.
Bye.
Have fun.
Thank you.
We're gonna say, I identify as queer, and personally, I have always felt like I'm capable of loving anyone in any package that they come in, any human being, and I don't have any preference. But I totally get that I present as like a straight woman because I married a cis man and I'm a cis woman, but that's just how it worked out for me. But I appreciate it. I appreciate it all. I love it. I
wish I could, but I don't. So that's just how it is.
Yeah. And further evidence that this is not a choice. This is
not a choice. Yeah.
But I will say that the documentary took us all the way back and took us all the way forward to today. And even though the Stroll isn't there, those women are still moving in the community. One woman raised $1 million for a housing project.
Yeah, that was awesome.
That was amazing. And her speech, I was going to do an impression of it, but it was so moving. And her speech, she was so moved by the moment that she even collapsed, like, old ladies in church after they've given up the Holy Ghost and just collapsed. She collapsed. And it was such a beautiful moment to witness. There were flashbacks of the 80s. I noted the fur coats and the heels. Woo!
Oh, yeah.
I loved that. Yeah. Then we learned about some stats. The gay rights movement has consistently left trans folks behind, but it took sex workers, trans and non-binary folks speaking up for themselves and reminding them, hey, we're here. And then one trans person was saying, it's important I see myself reflected as a person of color and as a former sex worker, that I see myself. I actually think that was the activist woman who said that. There weren't many resources for them, and now they are in positions to create their own resources. It was very full circle, because in the beginning, one of the trans people was talking about how I used to imagine myself out there on the Stroll as like a superhero, as Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
And then at the end, one of them really did say, I feel like Wonder Woman because I made it.
Yeah.
And they're all still connected to each other, still look after each other. Their sisterhood
thrives. A couple
thrives.
of them who live like right down the street from each other.
Yes, I loved that. Yeah. I love that. Tabitha is a human rights specialist. Carrie is a harm reduction worker. Elizabeth is involved in organizing trans and social justice events. Izzy is a hip hop artist and lives with her husband. Egypt is a godmother, the infamous or the famous House of La Beja. La Beja? House of La Beja.
What is it?
It's a ballroom, culture. That's a whole nother subject. I am not fully versed on. But remember the movie or the show Pose? That's ballroom culture.
Oh, okay.
There's dance and there's costumes and performances, and there are little families that support each other. So Egypt is the godmother of that. And then Lady P and Brenda are the two friends who live next to each other and been friends for 35 years. So in all of it, I think what I learned is how strong these women are and how they are not just anything. They're not just sex workers. They're not just women of color. They're not just trans, but they're all these things.
Human beings.
Yeah. And I think what I learned is about just how human it is to want to be free, to want to be liberated. And I think
live authentically.
Live authentically. Yeah. And I thought about, I'm glad they told us about the charity that the house that is for trans youth.
Oh, yeah.
I felt like it was a call to action, like, or at least some sort of reminder like, hey, we're still out here. We do still need help. So I think what I'm going to do after this discussion is sort of look into ways to help BIPOC and trans folks. Maybe we can offer some coin. Maybe we can share a post. Maybe, I don't know. That's where
a great idea. I'm down.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's do it.
Well, this has been fun, Beth.
Yeah, as always.
Yeah. I do want to thank the Fruities for listening. Again, we invite Fruities who are of the trans experience or any LGBTQ folks who want to weigh in on this documentary. If there's something maybe we didn't see from our cisgender eyeballs that we missed, we wish you could have been here with us to talk about it. We hope we did a fair job, and we can't wait to see you on the next video club too.
Yeah.
Slap those gums some more. This has been Fruitloops Video Club with Beth, Minnie, and me, Wendy. And thank you so much for joining us. Yeah. This has been The Stroll. And look alive, y'all. It's crazy out there. Find my notes. Get my notes.
So are you guys going over to the relatives this evening? Yeah.
No. Antonia and I joined a new guild in World of Warcraft.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. I kind of didn't think about their raid times when we joined.
So you have to get logged
I'm gonna leave
and stuff.
here like quarter after, then I'm here for most of it. And then,
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Tight. Okay. Got it. Okay.
Got it, friend. Do you ever watch those TikTok videos with the lady? She's a teacher and she pretends like she's talking to Trump like a student.
No.
Mm-mm.
She's like, okay, friend, I know that it's really upsetting when and she always says, got it, okay? She always calls him friend. But we can't do that, okay?
Friend.
Got it, friend.
Imagine if more people had called him that when.
Oh gosh, I want to talk to people like that. I gotta keep watching them so I can learn how to talk like that.
Oh, like calling people friend and stuff.
Friend and like children.
Yeah. Yeah. I encountered people talking like that for the first time when I worked at the Science Center, and they would do field trips with the kids. And it was like, okay, friends, we're going to go here. And I'm like, oh, that's a neat way to talk to the kids.
Yeah. It's non-binary.
Mm-hmm.
It's friendly.
It's
It's kind.
Yeah.
Inclusive.
Yeah.
So I like it. I approve of that.
Yeah. I love it too. So when you guys show up together at these guilds, are you and Antonio on a team?
It's kind of like one of those things where if you don't show, you don't want to disappoint like 24 other people by not showing up or being late or whatever.
Yeah.
It is a commitment. Got to be able to kill the monsters and get the loot.
I didn't get it until my son, he played it when he was a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to get him to come to dinner. And he's like, I can't. I'm raiding. I'm like, just pause it.
It's like you can't.
It's like, I can't. And he's like throwing a fit.
You can't. Oh, wow.
You can't pause it because like all these other people are. Yeah, it's happening.
You're playing live.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. I love this. This sounds so fun.
It is fun. Yeah. The first time I played it, I couldn't get over like, I'm running around in this game. And I'm like, wait, that's another person? That's another person. That's another person. They're somewhere else. I can talk to them and they're somewhere else. And we can run around together in this world and do things. And it's so cool.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh my God, that's another person. I need to leave. All right. Let me take a look at the calendar. like the 17th.
You know what?
Does that work?
Yeah, that will work for me.
Okay, cool.
I haven't left my house in days. I'll still be here then, I'm sure.
All right, let's do it the 17th then.
Okay, let's do it.
Let's do it.
All right, friend. Well, nighty-night. It's been fun.
Yeah.
You got the recording all...
Oh, yeah, I should stop the recording. Okay.
Something is creeping in. Don't follow it down.
Let me introduce you to Barry Clew, an authorised financial advisor from New Zealand and a very special kind of stain on humanity.
He was a very knowledgeable young guy.
He was a registered financial advisor.
Type of guy that was bending over backwards to help you.
Now, you could be forgiven for thinking that Barry sounds like a great guy, and you'd be right. Well, right up until the point when you're wrong.
It was all fictitious.
She stole from my son who has a disability.
Chris never knew. He died believing that we're all taken care of.
A psychopath is somebody who lacks empathy, acts impulsively. I think there's a strong case that Barry might be all of those things, actually.
To find out how Barry Clew stole over $15 million from 81 victims, subscribe to Clueless, the long con. That's Clueless, spelt Klooghless.
24 hours ago, I found out the person that I'd been dating and seeing for the last 6 months is a con man.
That is my sister Emma. Andrew Tonks's lies had been so convincing, she'd invested $300,000 with him. However, the tables were about to turn on Andrew. What he didn't know was that Emma had discovered his real identity. But to get any chance of justice, Emma had to act like it was business as usual. Coming up in this series,
and that's when murder, all this stuff goes through my mind. I'm really, really scared.
I'm assuming Sarah has watched too much Netflix and figures I've been defrauding you. Couldn't be further from the truth.
That's what this was, a real-life story that seems so unbelievable, but it was actually true.
A true story that all starts with one simple swipe to the right. I'm Sarah Ferris.
And I'm Emma Ferris, and this is my story, Conning the Con.